Howdy, everybody, and welcome to the Crown Council live stream. I am Stuart Anderson. This is our weekly live broadcast show. Happens every Thursday at 11 o'clock Mountain Time. And we've been doing this show for almost 3.5 years. We're grateful that you would join us here live, or even if you're watching the recorded version. Obviously, both are just as good. We're grateful that you would tune in, be part of this incredible community, and hear from some of the stories that are happening inside the Crown Council community, 1,000 members strong across the United States and Canada. We're grateful for each of you and thankful for this little program where we get to meet, talk with, and learn from some of the best in the dental industry. Before we get started with our show today, I want to share my screen. This is crowncouncil.com. On this website, you will find a host of information, but what I want to share with you today is under your directory. So under my directory, when you log in as a Crown Council member, you will see this, the Premium Member Hub. And if you click there under the Premium Member Hub, you will be guided to this page that includes all of the library that are open to Crown Council members. These are the things that will help you build a culture of success in your practice. I want to focus just for a minute on the skills of the week. This Skills of the Week program has been going on for almost 10 years. Steve and I update it almost every week. You can count on seeing some sort of update from us on the Skill of the Week page. And these skills offer a 2, 3, 4 minute opportunity for your team to gather together, work on your case presentation, work on the skills, work on who you want to be, how you want to treat patients. Just an excellent opportunity for you each week to focus on and learn something together as a team. So super grateful for everyone that tunes in. It's our kind of our highest rated product, if you want to call it that, the most downloads and the most things that happen each week with that product. So we're grateful for Crown Council members who continue to use the Skill of the Week program and hear from us every day or every week. Something new to learn and practice as a team, new skills to learn. So anyway, just a little housekeeping there. We hope that you're open to that training item, that you and your team are taking advantage of it and using it as you're working towards your qualified membership. It's part of a great CE program to be part of being a qualified member and getting that recognition at the Crown Council annual event. If you don't know, every year we honor our qualified members or the qualified program inside the Crown Council at our annual event. Let me just review it real quick. We encourage all Crown Council members to become qualified. Over the history of the Crown Council, we have learned that the very best in the Crown Council membership do 8 things, and we have put those 8 things in what we call our Crown Council Qualified Member Program. So you'll see that in your directory. You'll want to click here, and you'll see here on the left-hand side all of the things that a practice can be doing and should be doing as part of the qualified program. This will walk you through step by step each of the things that you can be doing and should be doing as a team to build your office culture, create an office culture of success, and to become a Crown Council qualified team. So there you go. All right, our first guest today, Lane Anderson from Prospecta Marketing. I do just a short introduction with Lane and talk to him for just a minute. This is a recorded segment with Lane. He couldn't be on live, or we couldn't do it live, so we recorded this fun little segment and had the opportunity to walk through some of the things that are happening in Google search, in online search engines, AI tools, and most specifically, the neatest part of this little interview we did was learning how each generation searches for you on the internet. So they are seeing trends in each generation finding you in different ways. So it's an incredible insight into where you're putting your time and money and energy to find the patients that you want. So Prospecta Marketing takes about 30 minutes, this awesome interview with them. We're grateful for them and thankful for the things they share. Enjoy this little interview. All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Crown Council live stream. Grateful to be with you. Grateful for our guests. Lane, how are you?
Doing well. Good to be with you
Very good.
today.
Melissa, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having us.
You bet. We're these two are joining us from Prospecta Marketing, and if you don't know anything about Prospecta, I'm going to turn the time over to Lane for just a minute. But before he goes, if you were not at the annual event, I think it was not this year, but last year, Prospecta Marketing was honored with our Resource Partner of the Year. They have been an incredible resource, as it says, not a vendor, in the Crown Council for I don't even know how many years, Lane, but providing solutions to Crown Council and all the stuff that we're going to talk about today is just a next step in some of the things that you have been helping Crown Council members with to make sure that their patients know how to find them. So grateful to be with you. Lane, do you want to give everybody like a 30,000-foot view of what you do and who you are?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Stu. And it's great to be with you. We have been working with the Crown Council. This is our 20th year.
Nice.
We attended our first annual event in 2006, and it has been an awesome partnership. What we do is help practices find new patients profitably. And we do that through internet search, helping you show up in the search results, both in terms of paid ads, in search engine optimization, with the local listings, and helping you with strategies to show up in those local listings, and also attracting great reviews from your patients, and capturing all that in a proprietary tool called the Prospect Tracker that helps us to understand where patients are coming from, what's bringing you your best patients, and how we can then shape the marketing around that information that helps us understand what's working. So
Very,
that's
I,
it
I
in a
love
nutshell.
No, I love that part of it because oftentimes the solution here is just blasting out messaging and Googling whatever and hoping that it works. It's one of the best parts about the tool that you have, which is watching and seeing where the new patients are coming from and what messaging is actually working. So a little more scientific here when it comes to research. So, very cool.
We love
Hey, I
numbers.
I know that when you asked to be on, you specifically said, "Hey, we have things to share, some new updates, some search engine information, which is seems like it's constantly shifting." Um, I'll turn that over to you, Lane. Turn it over to Melissa. You guys have a great little presentation and information to share with the rest of Crown Council. So, show is yours. Let's do it.
All right. Thank you. We are excited to share this with all of you. We are finding exactly what you said, Stu, that, you know, internet search is constantly changing. We are continuing to see a lot of evolution in how to reach people and what works. And Melissa is a marketing director at our company and oversees all of our local listings and blog content that's generated to help with websites. And she's going to share with us today some research findings that was done regarding local marketing and how that is used in internet search and what people are using. And I think you'll find it very interesting. This is regarding all local businesses, not just dentistry. So as you'll see as we go through these findings, some of these things are really, really helpful. Some you need to apply a filter to and say, hey, you know, in dentistry, is it going to be any different than what we're seeing here for local
Mm,
marketing in general? So
nice.
I'll turn it to Melissa.
Okay.
She's got some very interesting things to share.
Awesome. Let me go ahead and get my screen shared.
There it is. Looks good.
Awesome. Great. Good to have it. So, like Lane said, when you're running a business that depends on local populations, you want to know that you just can't sort of put it out there and hope for the best. You can rely on footfall or word of mouth, but that alone will not cut it. So, whether digital, local SEO, or additional methods, marketing to local consumers requires meeting them where they are, and getting that right can take practice and some time. So meanwhile, you might be reading headlines about AI and its takeover and seeing these headlines in search and digital news. So sometimes we might get overwhelmed trying to decide how to spend your time money, and efforts. So this study that we're talking about really looks at the true state of consumer search right now. It surveyed 1,000 US consumers about their local search behavior and preferences to summarize the impact for local businesses. So let's look a little bit at some of these key statistics and findings. So 70% of all general online searches are conducted using Google. So Google is definitely still king. It is a big player, but some shifting, as Lane mentioned. Nearly 3 in 5 consumers search for something online multiple times a day. 40% of consumers are actively using generative AI within search. 85% of consumers consider the presence of contact information and opening hours an important factor when researching local businesses. 30% of consumers are happy to choose one business from their research and make a decision. 1 in 4 Gen Z consumers use social media as their primary method for local search. That's going to be interesting, and we'll dig into that a little bit more as we go throughout. Almost a quarter of consumers say that 41 to 60% of their searches are local specific, and 1 in 5 consumers conduct local searches directly within Maps.
I do that. That's my favorite tool.
There you go. Point made. So which platform do consumers consider their default for local searches? You'll notice that for general searches, you'll notice the chart lists Safari as a separate search method, even though it is a browser type. So although Safari uses Google as its default search engine, consumers might not think about this when they open that browser to search for something. 61% of consumers said they default to Google for general search queries. However, when we combine this percentage with Safari, it rises to 70% of consumers using Google for search. Then if we add Google Maps, this rises to 72% effectively using Google products for search. Meanwhile, 5% said they default to ChatGPT for general searches. It hasn't even been 3 years since that technology was launched, what makes it fairly significant that 1 in 20 consumers is using ChatGPT as their default search platform. But in comparison, that might seem like a surprisingly low percentage with some of the headlines about the AI takeover, but it certainly is on the rise. Another surprising finding here is that just 3% of consumers said that they default to YouTube for general search, as it's widely referred to as the world's second largest search engine behind Google. But we should note that Google owns YouTube and surfaces YouTube results prominently in its search engine results. But it is interesting that only 3% would start their search directly on YouTube.
What a cool graphic.
Yeah. So while Google is this default search platform for users of different generations, splitting the data out by age does tell a different story. Less than half of Gen Z consumers, 49%, default to Google for general search purposes, while the percentages for millennials at 62%, Gen X at 64%, and boomers, 66%, reach much higher. This split also shows that 10% of Gen Z consumers consider ChatGPT their default search platform for general queries, which is double the population average.
Wow.
Now that various platforms are implementing generative AI within their search functionalities, it's not really simply a question of whether consumers are actively using AI for search or not. The survey asked whether they're actively using it. It wanted to test the hypothesis that many might not be aware that they're using it, particularly with the rollout of search features like AI overviews, which if you see that pops up sort of on top of a general Google query, and if you click on it, you might not even be aware that you're stepping into that AI world. 40% of consumers said they do actively use generative AI when searching online, which tells us that they are aware of and using search features like AI overviews, Copilot, and Meta AI. It's difficult to say whether the 46% of consumers who said that they don't actively use generative AI are fully aware of the AI search features. It could be the case that some of them have seen platforms like ChatGPT as clear examples of using generative AI, but they might not have noticed how results are being generated within their own preferred search platforms. It could also suggest that 46% are actively scrolling past information generated by AI overviews and similar. So the remaining 14% highlights that there is a slight sense of some consumers maybe lacking awareness of how AI is implemented within search platforms. They may be consuming and relying on this information without knowing precisely how it has been generated. So if we review the same data split out by age groups, we can see that Gen Z, millennial consumers sit higher than the 40% average actively using generative AI in search. Boomers, however, quite drastically fight this trend, with just 19% of this cohort saying that they actively use generative AI in search. Further, 59% of boomers state that they don't actively use AI in their search habits, while 21% don't know whether they actively use it. This reinforces the idea that some groups of consumers do not really understand how AI has been rolled out into the existing search platforms that they are using. Meanwhile, Gen X trends along the population average. So how often are consumers searching with local intent? We don't have that exact number, but consumers were asked to estimate how much of their search behavior has local intent, and 2 in 5, so 39%, said at least 41% of their searches are dedicated to finding information about local businesses. When asked which platform consumers defaulted to for local specific searches, we can see a little bit more variety compared with the general searches. So Google remains the clear frontrunner by far, with 45% saying that they default to the platform for local searches. Again, if we wrap in those Google and Safari results, knowing that Safari uses Google search, we get a total of 53%. Another significant finding is the prominence of Google Maps in local search. 15% of consumers said they would use Google Maps as their first port of call, meaning they are searching local terms, which could be branded or non-branded terms, directly in Google Maps. While individual social media platforms only seem to take a small share of local search, the data is then grouped by platform type. So here we can see that the local social media platforms are the first port of call for 14% of consumers. If you think about how local search functionalities have only really appeared in social media in the last few years, that's quite a significant proportion of consumers.
Yeah. Huh.
So how do the percentages for these platforms slide when we look at the generational differences? Although significantly less reliant on Google search than their generational counterparts, Google still leads the way as the dominant search platform, local search platform, for almost a third of Gen Z consumers. Meanwhile, just under a fifth of Gen Z, 18%, take to Google Maps as a default local search platform, which sits 3% higher than the population average. TikTok, however, comes in third, with 10% of Gen Z consumers using it for local search. Notably, this is the only demographic where we see TikTok making the top 3 or even the top 5 local search platforms.
I wouldn't even know how to use TikTok to search for anything. That's funny. Okay, cool.
Definitely generational on that one.
That's funny. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. Excellent point. I hear you on that. I second that. Another surprising finding is that 5% of Gen Z consumers consider Facebook their default local search platform. Again, this is the only demographic in the study where Facebook has made a top 3 or 5 appearance. And it's particularly surprising due to the fairly well-known generational differences in Facebook usage, with Gen Z famously spending the least amount of time on it. But in late 2024, Facebook did announce that it would be implementing a Gen Z-focused redesign. So perhaps this could be an early indicator of that success. We shall see. When we group the platforms together by type and look at the generational split, it starts to tell a slightly different story about the importance of social media. Over a quarter of Gen Z, 26%, consumers are turning to social media platforms as their primary method for local search, which is 12% above the general population average. In fact, where 1 in 20 baby boomers use social media as their default platform for local search, 1 in 4 Gen Z consumers is using it by default. Like Gen Z, fewer millennial consumers consider Google their default local search platform of choice than the general population, although the gap here is much closer. Their preference for Maps products also sits higher than the population average, with 21% of millennial consumers defaulting to Google Maps for local search and 5% choosing Apple Maps. YouTube is also slightly more prominent than the general population average, making it the joint third most popular local search platform. Meanwhile, Gen X and Boomers sit ahead of the population average in choosing Google as their default local search platform. Interestingly, a higher percentage of Boomers chose Safari as their default local search platform than any other group, which is sitting above the population average. As discussed in the general search section, this suggests that some consumers consider their default device browser their local search platform, when in reality, we know that Safari uses Google without really distinguishing between the two. Another surprising finding is that 4% of Boomers default to DuckDuckGo for local search, which sits also above the population average, 4% versus 2%, and landing within their top 5 default local search platforms. DuckDuckGo, it may be familiar, maybe you're not familiar, but it is known for having stricter search privacy, and they really use this messaging as a key selling point, which really likely suggests that Boomers are more security and privacy conscious group than other demographics. So what actions do consumers take during their local business search? 67% of consumers said that they often or always go to look at business reviews after conducting a local business search. We don't know if this necessarily means that they look for reviews within the same platform they started the search on, but we can probably assume that for the likes of Google, Google Maps, and Apple Maps, they are making this functionality in platform. Almost half of consumers said that they often or always go on to plan their travel route to the chosen business. This suggests 2 things. 1, how quickly consumers seem to be making their decisions, and 2, that consumers are conducting local business research with the aim of visiting in the very near future. I think it's important here to reframe a little bit. Remember what Lane said at the beginning, that this is really a wide lens that this is looking at, and of course could vary somewhat by industry. But the sense of soonness is often reinforced by finding that 56% of consumers said they often or always check that the business information is correct and matches up with other mentions online. They want to be sure that key information like physical address and contact information are going to be correct before they're going to go out of their way. 1 in 5 consumers said they never switch to another platform to find more business options, while just 23% always or often switch to another platform. This is a significant number of searchers tending to only use their default platform for local searches. However, that still leaves 79% that are using multiple platforms for local business research at least some of the time. It also found that many consumers focus their local business research around just one option rather than choosing several different businesses to make sort of a short list. On average, 31% of consumers will continue researching one chosen business, while 30% are happy to choose a business and make their decision. Interestingly here, Gen Z seems to me the most decisive, with 38% saying they choose one business to focus more research on, and 31% saying they simply chose a business and make their decision. On the opposite end of this, Boomers, a majority of them, 50%, prefer to take several different options and carry out their research before deciding on a business. This suggests, again, that sense of caution more among Boomers, making sure that they feel like they're making the right or maybe a good decision. Kind of aligns more with perhaps being a little bit less trusting than consumers of Gen Z. We know how consumers begin a search and the actions they take, but what are some of the key factors they're looking for when looking for a local business? What helps sort of seal that deal in making a decision? On a similar note to the search actions, 46% of consumers feel that the presence of business contact information and opening hours is very important. In total, 85% of consumers view the presence of contact information as an important factor. It's interesting that this factor sits higher than any other, beating out price, proximity, product availability, and even at times what people are saying about the business, it reinforces the idea that consumers who are conducting local business research are doing so with the aim of visiting in the immediate future. So it's really kind of a reminder here the importance of having correct address, phone number, email contact information listed across multiple platforms, that your opening hours are up to date so that all of that information is correct and readily available for those users. At the other end of the scale, discovering a new business is lower on the importance list, suggesting that consumers are motivated to search for local business that meets their needs. It is important to remember, of course, noting again that this doesn't delve into the specifics of business types and industries. Let's take a look at a few of the key takeaways here. So the first one is to be where your customers are searching. As we mentioned at the start, local marketing comes down to really meeting your consumers where they are spending their time and searching. So while Google remains the dominant search platform for both local and general searches, there's plenty of evidence to show that different types of consumers prefer and are actually using other platforms. If Google is where the majority of your customers come from, your patients come from, then it really makes sense to focus significant efforts here. But one key should be don't place all of your eggs in one basket. The research finds that consumers are checking business information for accuracy. So things like claiming business profiles across many different directories and social channels really helps prove who you are and increases your trustworthiness. And the key to being where your searchers are is knowing where they are. How do you do this? Using analytical platforms to understand your traffic sources and how people are finding you, as well as listening to your social brand, to your reviews to understand what people are saying about your business. The second one is to optimize for Maps visibility. We talked about 1 in 5 consumers conducting local searches directly within Maps. We want to make sure that you're optimizing your business to appear in those map results. Make sure your listings are claimed and verified across Google Maps, Bing Places, Apple Business Connect, so that you can control and update the business information listed here. And Google Maps can also use business information to surface what's called justifications, which can be snippets of reviews or text that display in the local pack within search and map results. These can be pulled from your GBP, that's your Google Business Profile, from reviews that users have posted, even directly from your website. And the third and final one is AI is not taking over search behavior yet, but is definitely on the rise. The number of consumers using AI platforms as their default remains low for now, but significantly increasing in younger generations being more engaged with AI platforms. In addition, 40% of consumers are actively using it within their search experience, whether directly within a platform like ChatGPT or making use of functionalities like the AI overviews in Google. So features like AI overviews and Copilot certainly are not going to go away. And if consumers are relying on this information to support their research, you're going to want to think about ways to get your business mentioned in them.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that interesting trend where you ask ChatGPT or whatever, tell me the greatest cosmetic dentist in Salt Lake City. I don't know how you get ChatGPT to tell you who that is, but it is a really interesting trend to ask AI questions like that. Like, who is the most, like, I watch my young daughter do that, say things like, ChatGPT, who's making the best cookies in Salt Lake City? And I mean, it has to answer. It comes up with an answer, and it is actually pretty incredible to watch. It'll be
Yeah.
fun to see how the dental world uses that to find patients. So I'm interested in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool.
It'll be interesting, Stu, to see how that develops. But we had an interesting thing happen with one of our doctors, and they got a result in ChatGPT saying that they were a phenomenal
Yeah.
practice, but that they weren't the least expensive, but
Huh.
they provided great quality. And so you say, well, now wait a minute, how would
It,
they know?
know that. Yeah.
Well, and you go back to, oh, well, that must have come from a review
Google review.
because
Yeah.
somebody had talked about,
Yeah.
their pricing and the value and all of that. And so one of the key takeaways is if you're wanting to influence those results, one of the places you can do that is encouraging your patients to leave great reviews. And because it's scanning everything that it can find on the internet, right? And consolidating that into a paragraph or some results. So that's one of the things. The other thing to keep in mind is all of the presence you have on the internet is going to make a difference.
Right.
So the things that you put into, for example, social media, can potentially have some impact on that. So if you're putting good, positive things on there that reflect well on your practice, just like reviews, that can be another source. So those are some things to pay attention to, in addition to, of course, having a great website that's well optimized.
Yeah. I mean, even YouTube videos, sometimes I'll ask ChatGPT or an AI tool to, hey, watch this video, tell me what, I mean, it is an interest. I mean, so to see YouTube as a search engine, all of that presence that's out there, we can just assume is going to go into those AI machines to give an overview of you as a practice. So
It's
uh,
really true.
it's
And
cool. I mean, it's funny. I've started to, I used to go to Google and do that, and now, unfortunately, fortunately, I don't know. I trust my little Chat GPT friend more and more to give me a better suggestion than
sure.
than Google. So this is cool. I love that.
I,
Okay, any other takeaways here? I mean, this is. I mean, as I'm looking at these things. Lane and Melissa, what have you seen that the practices that are doing this correctly? I mean, what are they doing to make sure that they're doing this the right way?
well, I think one of the key things that Melissa shared with us that was really insightful is to how different uh, the different generations are and how
Mm,
they search. And so I think one of the key takeaways is to know your consumers
mm,
and that are becoming patients and know who you want to be targeting. You may be targeting to for example, a very young generation and find out that most of your patients that are getting cosmetic procedures are baby boomers or uh, maybe Gen Xers, but you need to see. You need to know your patient base, and that's a pretty easy thing to do if you just look at services that are being done in your practice and who is accepting treatment. And I think the other piece of that is having good tracking in place so that you can know what's bringing in your best patients and where they're coming from. And that is something that we've felt at Perspective Marketing that is incredibly valuable. We value the data that helps us have those insights into what's working and what isn't working and where are the patients coming from
yeah,
and how do we then adapt
yeah.
the marketing accordingly.
Awesome. Round of applause. This was awesome. This was so fun. I love stuff like this. This is so cool. Anything else, Melissa or Lane, that we missed before we wrap up?
I think that pretty well covered it. I do want to reinforce, we've talked about reviews that have come up a few times. I think
Mm-hmm.
the importance of having a comprehensive reputation strategy in your practice. And it really starts with delivering excellent care, delivering excellent service from the top down, giving that a wonderful experience throughout, and then having the entire practice understanding the importance of reviews and extending that invitation to share that feedback, because we know that reviews they've been crucial, and they're continuing to be even more significant, especially as Lane was talking about in the sphere of AI and understanding data and understanding what business is. Reviews is something called consumer generated content, and Google
Mm,
and all these engines are hungry for that information. And so reviews, I think we cannot underestimate the importance of having a really solid reputation strategy in place.
nice. Very cool. Thank you both. Very,
Yeah, thank you, Stu.
yeah, thank
Been
you.
wonderful to be with you
This is
and
Thank you for
awesome.
having
appreciate
us.
the
You bet.
chance to
And
share this with the Crown Council.
let's just update this in 6 months. I can't wait to hear how it changes. Cool. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Sounds
Thank you.
great. Thank you.
All right, we're grateful to talk to Lane and Melissa. Thankful for the things that they shared. Please reach out to Prospecta on the Crown Council Resource Partner tab on crowncouncil.com. You can be guided to them to learn more, to receive a little evaluation of your own marketing plan, and to start working with Prospecta. We're grateful for them. All right. Our next guest, Steve, had the opportunity to interview Josh Wagner from Pure Logic. We're grateful for Josh and Steve. Thankful for this interview they did. We won't hear the whole interview here on the live stream. This is a recorded segment with them. But enjoy learning from Josh, learning from Steve and Pure Logic. You can find this whole recording in the Mentor of the Month section of the Crown Council's website, as well as on iTunes, where the podcast was uploaded. This is just a brief portion of their interview. We're grateful for them and thankful for everything we learned from Josh. And we're grateful for him as a resource partner, as Pure Logic, as part of the Crown Council network and community. And we're going to share this little interview with you now.
Welcome to the Crown Council Mentor of the Month. It's Steve Anderson, and our guest today is an entrepreneur, a ton of private equity experience, and most importantly, a best-selling author. So Josh Wagner is the Chief Revenue Officer at Pure Logic, one of my favorite companies in dentistry, and the author of the Go-To-Market Cheat Code. So Josh is going to tell us how to cheat today, ethically and in a good way. So Josh, thanks for joining us today, and we're looking forward to tapping into some of your genius.
Yeah, Steve, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. And I think that your audience will find that the cheating is, in fact, quite ethical. And even more relevant is that it's something that people have been doing for decades, if not centuries, and something that you can leverage in your dental practice. Something that I've been doing in B2B SaaS for decades, and it applies just as well there as it does in dentistry. Just have to shift your mind frame a little bit.
So by virtue of kind of your career trajectory, you've been involved with dozens of different companies at different levels, from an investor to actually being involved in day-to-day business. So if you had to, summarize to this point some of your biggest takeaways that might apply to a dental practice from all your business experience, what would you say have been some of the biggest lessons learned?
Yeah, biggest lessons that I come back to is, one, relationships matter. And that applies to how you treat your patients. It applies to how you treat your potential referral partners. It applies to how you treat the industry, right? Like, key opinion leaders, whatever it may be, right? Relationships matter, and they always come back around. Just because you meet somebody and they don't really mean anything to you today, guess what? It's a small world. No matter how big it seems sometimes, relationships matter, and they always come back around. So treat people well and nurture them, and you'll be shocked at how well that pays off in your career, no matter what your career is. The other one is a close neighbor to relationships mattering. It's whatever you say you're going to do, just do it. And it's a really weird phenomenon to me. People who are like, yeah, I'll get back to you on that, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. But if you clearly articulate with people what you're going to do and you actually follow through on it, it has an amazing impact on the folks that you engage with. And I think it helps build stronger relationships. So it's just one of those things that you become known for someone that is a person of their word. And that gets around fast. Again, it's a small world, and it's about building relationships. So I like things in threes, and I can't think of a third one right now. So that kind of sucks. So I'm going to go with those two to kick off the conversation.
That sounds good. All right. Tell us about the origin of the book, the Go-to-Market Cheat Code. There's a common thread in this whole philosophy that we talked about before we started recording that I think has a lot of relevance to dentistry. But give us a little bit of a background on the basic idea behind the book.
Yeah, so you mentioned that a bit of an entrepreneurial background, which is absolutely true. And I would say that came to a head from, say, 2014 to 2021, where I was with a company called LeadMD. We're a boutique consultancy in the marketing and sales technology ecosystem, right? So kind of this SaaS ecosystem. And we started being really niche in that we created a professional services ecosystem for a platform called Marketo. It was a marketing automation platform that got really, really big and sold to Adobe eventually. During that time, we started to, we built services around Marketo and then more of the technologies in that ecosystem, and became a very partner first organization. And what we found is that the cheat for us was really doing what I said, building relationships, doing what you say you're going to do, giving more than you ever expect to get in return. And maybe that's the third thing that I missed out before, is the path to accelerating go to market, doing bigger deals, getting involved in conversations and accelerating sales cycles like never before. And that common thread was building relationships, right? So the book really came down to a lot of people in the B2B SaaS world build these partner teams and they fall flat because there's a lack of expectations that get set with leadership in terms of what partners is in that ecosystem. And you could apply this to dentistry, I would think, right? Like everyone's like, oh, well, what's a cheat? How can I get more leads, right? It always comes down to leads. But if you think of it that way, it's a really bad way to build a relationship, right? Like, what are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for me? So they build these partner programs and they give them referral fees or spiffs or, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, but it's never really tied to anything meaningful. So the whole book is really about how do you build relationships and build partnerships that are meaningful for both parties in a very strategic way. And then the book gets down to some very specific tactics, right? And those are really built towards how do you partner in the technology ecosystem. However, as we were bantering about pre-show, relationships are universal, and the give to get mentality works really, really well in the dentistry field, and maybe even some ways that your audience might not be thinking of. So we decided to document it and write a book about it.
So maybe give us an example from the technology world of a meaningful relationship. So basically, the cheat code is building meaningful relationships between, in this case, two companies that have common objectives. They might have customer bases where they overlap, where they're able to cross refer. So beyond just the cross referral, how do you define a meaningful relationship?
The idea is that we start from the very top. We both share the same customer base, right? We're both going after the same type of customer. And then even further down, we're playing in the same departmental area, right? So the idea is, okay, I sell to marketing, you sell to marketing. Well, if I sell to marketing, but you sell to finance, we don't really cross over and we can't really support each other that well. But we've decided sell to the same customer, sell to the same type of buyer within that customer. And now, what problem are we solving? We're solving a similar problem, but we have a gap and you have a gap. If we come together, do we solve that problem in a better way than we would otherwise doing it independently? And if we can agree on that at the very highest level, now we have something that we can disseminate through our organization that adds value to one another. So I like to give you an explicit example, once we get through that top level stuff, right? I needed to make friends with the sellers at Marketo, right? Because I wanted them to bring me into their deal, right? And that's a big friction point, by the way. Another seller bringing another seller into a deal where you could be like, well, I don't want you to slow my deal down. I don't want you to take budget away from me. I don't want, all of these things. That is and can be conflict. But I came at it and said, listen, what are the biggest objections that you hear in your sales cycle? 1, 2, and 3. Great. I'm now your objection handler. You hear any one of those 3 things, I've developed an offering that handles those objections for you. And we can go in better together. Right. So that was very much how I went to market to and through my partners.
Love that. So you became, it was more than just a referral relationship. You built in to their operating system, basically the answers to some of the biggest objections they got, and that generated more business for you, but solved a big problem for them.
Correct. And honestly, at that point, the fee, the spiff, the commit, it doesn't matter. Right? Because what you do your deal is more impactful for you as a seller than you helping someone else sell their deal. So now it becomes non-transactional. It becomes value-based. We're now helping each other get into a customer, solve a problem, sell a deal faster, and we sell our stuff in a more meaningful way.
So you developed this whole ecosystem of, could we call them allied businesses, if you will? In other words,
yeah, I love it.
You're selling to the same market and you're selling to the same person or
same buyer,
same buyer. So it's easy to connect all the dots.
Correct. And that alignment's critical.
Okay. So can we jump over to a dental practice?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's take
absolutely.
that simple structure, but very, very powerful, and how it applies to a dental practice. So let's start. Can we start in hygiene?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Start in hygiene. So hygiene is specifically positioned in the healthcare world to diagnose and treat the most prevalent disease in the world. So do you know what the most prevalent disease in the world is, Josh?
I've been down this road before with a personal story, so we'll go there. I'm guessing it's periodontal disease.
It is periodontal disease. And you know how I know it's the most prevalent disease in the world?
Well, you work in the dental field, so I'm guessing.
Trivial Pursuit. So
Oh,
it
yeah, I
is
like
a
that.
question. It is an actual question in Trivial Pursuit. What is the most prevalent, widespread disease in the world? Periodontal disease. That's how I know
That's
that.
fantastic.
So now the beautiful thing, not the beautiful thing about the disease, but the interesting thing about it is what we know now, the science tells us that it is connected inseparably with all other types of inflammatory conditions like heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis, basically anything that is, and one of the most recent findings, it is now been found to be causal to
Mm,
Alzheimer's. So there's
wow.
some Alzheimer's that is caused by the same bacteria that is at the root of periodontal disease. Okay, so now dentistry, specifically hygiene, has something in common with now so many other points in healthcare.
Right.
Right? All that where there's all kinds of different healthcare allied practices that are treating all those different conditions. And so here's the opportunity. And you and I, we shared this before, but one of the things I challenge hygienists to ask when they see an inflammatory condition on a patient's health history form. So let's say, Josh, for example, if I were the patient and I had on my health history form that I have arthritis or high blood pressure, or I'm taking some kind of medication for a heart condition, then there would be a dialogue around that. And then this question: has your cardiologist, rheumatologist, primary care physician, have they talked to you about the correlation between the health of your mouth and that condition? And what do you think the answer always is from the patient?
Confused look and no.
Never. It's never been discussed. Okay. So knowing what you know and doing what you've done in other industries, if you were the dentist in that situation, and you have these opportunities that come up every day, you're looking at health history, medical history forms all day, every day with all these conditions, and there's a practitioner behind every single of those patients. Knowing what you do, if you were the chief revenue officer of my dental practice,
Yeah.
what would you do to develop meaningful relationships where everybody could benefit?
So I love how you're thinking about this, because the obvious is, oh, well, we send a referral to the periodontist. We've already got that taken care of, right? So that's the easy, quick win within your scope of what you know as a dentist, right? Love that. So where you're going, and I like the angle you took around data, because this is an untapped resource that every business has in every industry that they don't utilize. You have data on your customers that is meaningful to somebody else. And you can draw insights from that data, kind of like you're doing right now, to provide to that other person that is valuable to them. So now you take a few hours, maybe on a weekend, you pull together that data, you look at the trends for your patient base that says XYZ are suffering from this, 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 and this. And now you pull together that list of providers that you outline there, and you give them a call. And you give before you expect to get.
All right,
And
so take that point right there. What would you give? In this case, let's say it's a rheumatologist, it's a cardiologist, it's a primary care physician. What would you give?
you have two things in this opportunity.
Okay.
One is the insight.
Okay.
Hey, Dr. So-and-so, I've been looking at my patient base, and I've been looking through the data and kind of, running some analysis, threw it in some spreadsheets, and there were a number of things that I'm noticing that are tied to my hygiene reports. right? And I think these would be super interesting to you. Did you know that? This is what I found. I'll send you the report that I put together. In fact, I have 3 patients that I think would be excellent referrals for you. Are you taking new patients right now? You've given them more than enough value.
Love that.
The insights alone are valuable, right? Because they might not know that. Something you don't know that's tied into their practice that is tied to someone else in the medical field. Super interesting, right? Like doctors and dentists are naturally curious people, right? You don't get into any medical field without being naturally curious. That's my observation. So I think that's a huge advantage for you. 2, you send them referrals, right? What's a new patient worth? I know in dentistry, it's worth anywhere from $250 to $1,200 in the first year. Cool. What's it to a I can't remember all the different people you said, but what's it worth to them? Right. So, you send those referrals. Hey, thanks. That's really awesome. These are interesting insights. Didn't really think about that. Yeah, we are taking new patients. What's the best way to refer them to you? Phone call, text message, blah, 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 whatever. Cool. Hey, listen, let's talk sometime. I'd love to hear if those patients pan out. Can we reconnect in a month? Whatever. And follow up with them. And then just keep that dialogue going and see how those patients went. When you see that patient's nest, ask them about them. Did they go? Did the referral work out? Call the doctor. What did I miss? Was it a good referral, bad referral? And start to create a feedback loop that hones in what a good referral looks like for that practice. What's automatically going to happen without you doing anything else is they're going to say, hey, tell me about your practice. What do you guys do? Are you a general dentist? Do you specialize in anything? Do you do all on fours? Do you, whatever?
You do.
And then all of a sudden, referrals are going to start coming your way. In fact, they might be coming in waves faster than you ever sent over to them. It's weird how that works. So that's what I would do. And it's crazy how it'll probably happen, but keep it going, right? Don't just like send the referral, get a couple referrals and be like, all right, this is great. I started something new. Take that physician out to lunch once a quarter, give them a call. Send them new data trends. Just keep nurturing it and providing value, and it'll blow up in a way you wouldn't even imagine.
So this is really taking a chapter out of a specialist book. So when you look in dentistry, when you look at oral surgeons, periodontists, endodontists, anybody that relies on the referral from a general dentist, this is what they do for the referring offices, or at least what they should do.
They should do.
Value added, build the relationship, educate, the whole deal. So now we're just taking that same concept, moving it down one generation and saying, why doesn't a general dentist, cosmetic dentist, why not do this with other allied medical professionals, do the same thing? And I love your insights and information and education is one of the best places to start. All right, so here's another example. Let's go to the obstetrician. Okay, so we're gonna go to the obstetrician.
What's an obstetrician do? Sorry.
They deliver babies, Josh.
Got it. I have 3 of those. Great.
Okay. Cool. All right. So the relevance here is that there's all kinds of, again, health conditions that center around being pregnant, that in that stage, there's a ton of education that needs to take place. So one of the insights, for example, is that periodontal disease is directly linked to premature, low birth weight babies.
Oh my goodness. I did not know
So
that.
there's all kinds of data around that. Everybody in dentistry knows that. Most people in obstetrics know that too. But what they don't have is specific instructions of how to keep periodontal disease at bay while you're pregnant.
Interesting.
So the other application is insight, number 1, to remind them of that. And then number 2, why not take it a step further and create an info sheet that could be given to their patients with, hey, here's some reminders, here's some tips of how to stay healthy while you're pregnant, healthy mouth, healthy baby, healthy life, with your practice as the source of that information.
Yeah, so I really like that, and I'll draw a similar parallel to what we did in the SaaS world. So in SaaS, everybody loves benchmark data, right? What does good look like? They want to know, what is everybody else doing? So I think you can play on that natural human element of, I want to know what the good ones are doing, what's everybody else doing, and you can feed the egos. Another thing that doctors have is big ego, right? So hey, listen, we've got this research. We understand that this is a root cause of low birth weight for babies. It's caused by this thing. I've got these insights. Why don't we put out a report together that becomes the industry standard, right? Not only the industry standard on the data, but how to solve, right? And now we become the de facto go-to folks for how to solve this problem, right? It's not going to take you that long. Bring some data together, coalesce it, stamp of approval, get some, you can even send out a survey to a handful of your peers to get, some validated data across the way. Write a little narrative around it, and then come up with, like you said, your step-by-step process and guide to solving this problem as endorsed by doctors and doctors from so-and-so, right? And then now that report, I know we were bantering ahead of time about, how dentists tend to think about marketing, right? This like singular paid ads, SEO, blah, 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 blah. Well, now you have a real asset that if you are going to do those things, that you can market, that's not only marketing for you, but it's marketing for your partner. And now you have a joint go-to-market strategy and joint marketing where you can share those costs, share those burdens, and you can all start to feed the ecosystem with something a little bit more meaningful than just, hey, you got a broken tooth, call me.
And if you're the author,
Credibility.
you're the authority.
That's right.
All right.
It's amazing how that works. And I can tell you from experience, people are like, oh, are you making money off your book? No, not directly, but it lends itself to credibility. It opens doors that I wouldn't otherwise have, right? Like, oh, this is my philosophy on go to market. Guess what? I wrote the book on it. Oh, well, do you want to come speak at my thing? Oh, do you want to check out this company that I want to invest in? Would you like to co-invest? It opens up doors, right? And that's what we're talking about here.
Love it. Okay. So.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for Crown Council Live today, July 17th. We will be back next week. Thanks for tuning in, and we're grateful to be with you.